Hello and welcome to the development show number 6. Wow, February already. It's moving pretty quickly. Tonight we're having a few technical issues, so if you're not catching this or we're a bit late, then I do apologize. It's not us, it's StreamYard, so hopefully it will pick up. We seem to be live on LinkedIn and YouTube, so that's a good start. We've only lost Facebook, but say we do record all of these sessions on YouTube anyway, so we can share the link. Yeah, thank you, Joesph, for joining us, and I'm so sorry about the technical issues and the
Oh, no worries at all.
We won't go there. This is, it's so beautiful being able to do this globally and different countries and time zones and kind of share experiences. And then sometimes when things like this happen, you just go,
Yeah, it happened. Right? It's almost one of those things when I've done these before. It's just, as soon as you need everything to work, it's fine. But when you're a few hours beforehand, everything's fine. It happens, especially when you got this, like you said, these international calls and interviews and everything like that. Always gets a little funky. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. It's the hazards of doing live shows, I suppose, that they are a bit temperamental. The first one yet that's gone slightly wrong, so we're okay. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself, Joesph, and if people just want to come and say hi and drop a comment in, that'd be fantastic as well.
Yeah,
so just give us a brief outline of your amazing career so far, which I've got up on the screen. So,
all right, I am Joesph Ross. I am from Massachusetts, a state in the United States of America. I am almost 30. After high school, I went to Penn State University in Pennsylvania, and my career started. It was a rough start. So I started off in the construction industry, overseeing a warehouse for just a few dollars over minimum wage. But that progressed. And what I mean by that is this: I have this drive, this relentless passion to do better, to be the best that I can in this life. And I was managing the vehicle fleet, and then I became an assistant project manager. From there, I ended up in the natural gas industry, and I was overseeing the qualifications, the quality aspect, training aspect of a small private company then, about 500 people in several states. And then in 2018, for those who don't know, in Massachusetts, there was a gas explosion that happened. It's now called the Merrimack Valley gas explosion. That essentially what happened is a pipeline had too much pressure, and a sensor was not reading what was going on. And then, an explosion happened in 3 cities: Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence. It cost billions of dollars in damage. It took lives, and it was because of the homelessness and the evacuation. It was the greatest humanitarian disaster in Massachusetts history. Where I fall into that was I was on the team that was on the response to that. So we got the call before we knew what was going on. And then we helped reconstruct not only the gas lines, but worked with Eversource, worked with the state, worked with 10,000 people that came over from Canada, from all over the United States to help reconstruct these 3 cities. From there, I switched over to the federal side of things to help prevent something like this to happen again. And then 2020, the year that changed all of our lives, right? COVID-19. A dramatic switch. I moved at the end of 2019. I moved to Virginia. A few months later, I came back up to Massachusetts to work at Web Industries, where we developed the first COVID rapid test on Earth for a company, BD, or Beck and Dickinson, the famous pharmaceutical company. So we were contracted out for that. And I can go in more detail later on with that. My home is at Moderna, based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also married and have a beautiful 10-month-old son.
Oh, 10 months. Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
You'll be getting some sleep soon. You'll be okay.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
It's a fascinating. Yeah, it's a fascinating journey for me personally. Yours is it. I think because when we talk about developments and we talk about how to better ourselves, yours kind of mirrors mine a little bit in the sense that I left education and went into a lower paid job and kind of worked my way through up in senior management, and that was kind of through engineering and service industries, and there was no kind of set pattern to it with kind of almost the correlation of companies that I worked for. So I went from engineering to manufacturing and production, and then service industries. So, with yours talking about, kind of warehouse and vehicle fleets, and then through, kind of the natural gas, and then the rebuilding, and then where you are now. It seems as though, to some people, it might seem as though there's a bit of a scattergun approach. Where some people will go into one industry and stop in that industry their whole life and work their way up. Is this something that was planned for you, or did you literally kind of leave education and leave college and get a job and then start from there?
So after school, after college, I kind of thought I was going to stay in one industry, residential construction, maybe end up in commercial construction at some point. But my plan was never to make these jumps. But I remember years and years ago telling someone it would be my dream if I ended up in, the life sciences, pharmaceuticals, biotech. But, that's a dream. What a stretch. But how it happened was actually a very natural course, a very of just circumstances. So sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. And so my very first job I actually got, I was hanging out with a friend of mine. I was on the job hunt right out of school. You got all these pressures on, in your early 20s, and everything's, and then, so I was like, hey, they're hiring at this. I know this guy who owns this company who's hiring for this position. He could be good at it. So I do the series of interviews, and I get it on my own merit, of course. And then the natural gas side of things is what I did mention in my intro was after I left this small company, nicknamed UHE, I went to a company called Twin Pines, which was a mile and a half down the street. They were in serious help that they needed a logistics manager. And I knew somebody from my church community, so I knew the owner. So I came in for a few months, and then while I was working for them, we did a job for RH White Construction, the parent company, RH White Companies. And then that got the ball rolling there. So it was just, hey, I ran into somebody, and then a conversation started. Next thing I know, I'm doing an interview at 6 p.m. at night to not conflict with the work schedules and, and all that. And of course, during this time, when I started at RH White 4 years ago, I was engaged. And so my drive has always been to be able to provide for my wife, for, now we have a son, and hopefully more down the road. So then the natural gas explosion happened, and that kind of got my name out there. So it was a natural progression of different things. And then it just kind of goes from there, if that makes sense. So for anyone who's looking to potentially change careers or choices, don't give up. Always be on the lookout. Talk to people. Never hurts to have a conversation.
Yeah, I heard a great quote the other day, and because you said it's sometimes it's who you know, and this quote said other times it's who knows you. And I think that that's quite a powerful thing as well when we think that networking and kind of getting our names out there is kind of a one-way street, that unless you're having a conversation with that person, it's not necessarily that valuable. But when we look at development and growth and things, it's you might not know someone, but they've heard of you. So it is a lot about reputation and a lot about perceptions and things like that, which is something I think we can forget sometimes.
Well, yes, you need to. One of the things that I am big on is you just need to. If you can't put your best foot forward, don't step at all. And professionally, like that's what I mean by that in a nicer way is, you have to be honest. The integrity. If you can't be a person of your word, then what are you doing? You can't. You can't. The way you leave. I heard this once. The way you leave one place is how you enter another. So if you leave a company in a bad foot, you're entering with a bad taste in your mouth. Somebody else might know you. That might be a mutual connection on LinkedIn. That person might have a cousin who knows somebody else at their community center. Whatever the case may be. So one of the things that I try to do is just make sure that, just be honest, and I'm not going to take the shortcut. I'm going to, make sure I do my due diligence and all that.
Yeah, no, I like that. The way that the way you leave one place is the way you enter the next. I like that. And I think, it is true, because I suppose if you leave in a bad way, even I'm even thinking about other situations, not necessarily just work situations, that you carried that those thoughts and those feelings, those emotions forwards. I'm trying to think that if you leave a job in a bad way and it's a bad company or bad manager, that if you go to the next one, you'll be automatically looking out for those red flags. You'll be looking out for those same behaviors, those same patterns, because it's in your head. It's the thought that you have.
Exactly. Yes, I couldn't say it better. You end up in this skewed, this foggy kind of mindset where you're almost waiting for a shoe to drop, but there might not be a shoe to drop. You need to kind of go down that road with the knowledge and the wisdom from before. Make sure you're prepared, you're equipped, but you want to, be open to the potential possibilities. And sometimes they're not great, and sometimes they are, and sometimes it's a mixture, because life can be like that. It's not just at work. It can be relationally with family or friends, your community, your whatever your hobbies and passions and whatever brings you to society or whatever. It can be that way, unfortunately, but there's a lot of blessings in being able to, walk that bridge that gap in a good, healthy mindset. And I think that is part of individual development.
Yeah, I think with the right mindset. So I want to talk about opportunities as well, because I think that both of us, and certainly your story, that you've taken opportunities when they've presented themselves. So it may be through someone, or certainly start with someone that you knew, and then because of the explosion and your role in it, that your name was starting to get known. Do you feel that you've taken opportunities when they've presented them, or do you feel that sometimes you've missed something? Or
So I've definitely taken some opportunities. I've definitely missed some too. Looking back now, I mentioned briefly that my wife and I went to Virginia. I thought that would have been a great restart, dealing with the explosions, dealing with everything like that. But it honestly happened to be one of the worst decisions I've made, for sure. And she would agree. In fact, like a month into it, it was, we need to leave immediately. And it took time and whatnot to do that. But I also learned during that misstep, um, which, yes, moving your family 700 miles the wrong way can be a misstep for sure.
Mhm.
But I also noticed when I came back to Massachusetts, there was a couple opportunities that I missed, and I almost got too. I was too quick to jump. Sometimes you gotta take a breath, and wait. And then there are times where I didn't get an opportunity at first, and then I tried again, and it happened. For example, Moderna. I'm currently there. I love it there. Um,
Mm.
we're doing the great work, a lot of great work over there, not just COVID. Um, but the pipeline is huge, and it's gonna, they're gonna save lives. And one of the things that happened there was last year, I went and applied for a particular position. And to be honest with you, and I like to be honest with everyone, I didn't get it. I got a no, um, after a second interview. And I applied to a few other places, but my heart was really set on it. And I was like, I want to be there. That's the future of medicine. And so I went on LinkedIn and I started reaching out to talent people, talent acquisition people, and all that, and started asking questions. Who do I talk to? Who's the manager? Um, who's connected to this department? And eventually, I got connected, got on the phone, and then I applied again. Went through a whole nother series of interviews, and it was a yes. That it's been a great fit, and it's been perfect for my family, and um, hopefully, I'm there for a while. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one of those companies. I think because of COVID, the name has been brought to the forefront of a lot of people's minds, and I've heard is some fantastic things about the company itself, not just the medicine that it's doing, but the actual company. Um,
Oh yes.
seems
The
very.
Yeah, I am. So obviously, this is me doing the interview, and I'm not doing this interview for Moderna or speak on their behalf. But as a individual, um, I believe what they stand for, their core values, their mission, um, their mindsets on how they approach um, their studying. Right? They're not just going to they're going to follow the science. They're going to follow the math. They're going to respect everyone. I talk to on a regular basis. So where I work, there's a few hundred people in that particular building. Um, there are people from even just my immediate team of like 20 people. They represent a home of probably at least a half a dozen countries. And so the way Moderna sees the world as a collective of just we are the human race and we are here to help everyone, and we will do our due diligence, we will do the research, we will not push things, we will be honest, we will be open, and I respect it, and it comes from the top down and everyone in between. It's so
yeah. I know a few people that work in the kind of the same space around the world, and it's all the same. I've got a very good friend who's, I think he's in Germany now, but he moves around quite a lot, and he's exactly the same. He's a small team, and I think that the team of 15, they represent some like 13 countries, 14 countries. It's when I speak to him, it's like, oh, I'm going to see one of my work colleagues. I'm going back with them to their home in Austria, or we're going to Italy, or we're going to the US, and he seems to be jetting about everywhere. So it's really, really nice. So where did when I mentioned opportunities and things, the next thing I wanted kind of get on to was that we're presented with opportunities, but we have to be open and we have to be ready to take those opportunities, which I think that sometimes people underestimate when, certainly someone like me, coaching that talks about, you need to take opportunities when they present themselves. And people can sometimes think that means kind of sitting back and waiting for everything to come to you. And for me, there's some steps of, one, you have to be in the right mindset to recognize those opportunities. And the second is that you have to be ready to take those opportunities. Moderna could come and offer me, it's okay. Last week I was trying to get sponsored by Amazon. We'll try and get sponsored by Moderna this week. But, Moderna could come and offer me a fantastic role.
Right.
But I'm not ready. I haven't got the skills. I haven't got the knowledge, the industry knowledge. So it's not so much about taking opportunities when they arise, but it's being ready for them.
So
it sounds like, with your rejection as well, your first rejection, you went, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm set. I need to be ready and I need to create that opportunity. So I'm guessing this is where the self-development kind of, or the development of yourself came in.
Yes. So it's interesting when you talk and people look at success, they just see this, this person's on this show, they're doing this interview, look at this, they're looking great on the LinkedIn profile, but they don't see all the steps. Part in between that no, and then that trying again. I looked up what companies do they work with, who are they getting supplies from, what do they do, what's I don't know all that Moderna does because I'm not there yet, but is there a way I can find out who's supplying their machines? What do those machines do? I also found out that there's this organization called WebEx where you can take these online courses. So I'm like, I guess I'm going to start studying biochemistry online course. It's free to take the course, but you have to pay to get like the acknowledgement certificate when you pass its final exam from MIT and the University of Australia. There's something for like University of Australia, something like that. So I was looking up different opportunities and pursuing because there's a lot of people looking to. Moderna has doubled in size since I've been there. I haven't even been there for a year yet. So I need to, part of that development is that hard work, is that you take the no sometimes and you sit with it and you process it for a moment. And then you get up the next day and then you figure out, okay, I missed an opportunity. I need to get ready. I'm not ready for XYZ. And I think that's part of that self development is take the no, take the failing forward, as I like to call it, and then sit on it, process it. Don't ignore it. Don't push it off like it never happened. Accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to do what you need to do to figure out, okay, what's next if it's not Moderna, but I want to get into life sciences. Well, then I best know my life sciences. So MIT, right? That's the big school that is in that industry, and so I will start studying.
Yeah, I think this is so critical. I mean, we you can relate to this so much that when we get rejections, and not just from big companies, from jobs, but from opportunities to network, or you're trying to get into a networking group, or that you'll get told no a lot more than you'll get told yes at the beginning.
Yes,
And you said,
absolutely.
yeah, you said something very interesting, that you sit with that no, and then you get up the next day and kind of go, right, what am I going to do about this? No's, and we hear this a lot, and it's a common phrase that a rejection is just a redirection, and I think that sometimes gets lost, that we can think that it means, okay, that door's shut, let's go and
Yeah,
find the next door. But actually, to me, a no means, right, let's sit here, let's think about why is that a no?
right. Um, it
Can
can be
I then do
hard.
about that no?
Yeah,
even if it doesn't take me down that path, there's a reason that person or that group of people have said no to me. So what is it I am missing in my development for that to happen?
yeah. It's I know people like us who have been, you know, successful corporately and like career wise and all that, and people look and like, oh, I wish I could be like Greg. I wish I could be like Joesph. Um, but they ignore a lot of the aspects of sitting with that no, those emotions and the processing, and that sometimes that heart wrenching, that to the point where sometimes you get a headache, you're just sad, whatever the case may be. You need to face that head on. You can't just ignore it and search for the prize, the money, the title, the job, the XYZ. And it can be difficult. And one of the unique opportunities I got to have about a month ago was I had an opportunity to talk to the second person who interviewed me, where that no came from. And I got to talk to him. And I was I've talked to him briefly, but he didn't exactly remember who I was. And it came up. He's like, "Hey, your name came up on a list that I had on resumes I've gotten." I was like, "Do you remember me?" He's like, "Vaguely." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You said no." And he's like, "What?" And he asked for my background story and what happened, because I'm standing next to him in the office. And I did. And he's like, "Wow, that's some serious relentlessness." And I was like, "It is, but I have to ask, why the no?" And I had the unique opportunity. He's like, "Well, you weren't, you didn't have this knowledge in this area of science, and you didn't have that engineering knowledge. And when I asked those questions, you hit the surface, but you didn't dive into where I knew you would be successful." And I was like, "You're right. I don't know that." So what I did was I sat down with his specialist the following week, and I was like, "I want a one-on-one on this, and next week I want a one-on-one on that," because now I have some of that knowledge base, because I didn't study bioengineering, and I don't have an engineering degree, and so I couldn't answer these questions um, to then have those specific degrees. So sometimes you'll never get that answer. It was really cool that I did, But part of that opportunity and development is just sitting with that no, processing it, and then realizing, what do I have to do logically and emotionally and relationally to get to the next point.
That's amazing that you had, not only did you have that opportunity to ask, but that you did ask. Because I should imagine a lot of people say, well, actually, I don't want the negative rejection of someone, or someone just didn't like my personality, or someone, this big fear of rejection that can stop us from asking those questions and saying, actually, why was it a no? I want to know because I can then go and work on those areas which you have done.
Right.
It's very important that the way that we ask, and the fact that we do. And I might have mentioned this on some other shows and things, but it's also the way that we ask. There's two different ways that you could have asked. You could have said, the way that you did, can you tell me why it was a no? I want to know what I need to work on, what I can develop. And the other way was, why did you say no? In a bit more an aggressive, stronger tone, and you wouldn't get the feedback, you wouldn't get the help with the development in the second way of kind of being a bit more confrontational.
Right.
You might want the same outcome from them. It's just intonation and kind of where we are as a person as well. So when we're talking about, carrying internal biases, that you can say, well, you said no to me, so I'm not going to like you, without ever realizing it, because they've given you a rejection. Or you can remain curious and say, can you tell me why you said no to me? I'm really interested. So, and I think that's a very powerful thing in development as well, is having that curiosity.
Yes, absolutely. Being hungry for knowledge. I will be honest with you. At times, I can struggle, and sometimes I can come off strong. And so, probably 5 years ago, I would have been like, "So why do you say no? Like, come on, talk to me. That's ridiculous. I'm clearly here. Clearly you were wrong. Clearly you messed up." That would have been me, about 5-6 years ago, probably. But part of, that self-development and having a few no's, not just professionally, career-wise, but just in life, you kind of have that, that different approach, like we're talking about, that it's a development. It's never ending.
Yeah.
I'm a student for life.
And environment has a big say on that as well. Oh, so yeah. If you're around confrontational people, the way that you survive is to become confrontational as well. Right. It's really interesting. But you're right, it is about this development. And I've done something recently and kind of looked back over the last few years, and I was like, I'm not sure I recognized the person that I was back then. Even from 5, 6, 7 years ago, the thoughts that I had, what was going on in my life, that my interests were very small, very limited, and I look back and just go, wow, I kind of don't recognize who I was 10 years ago. And I think that this is a good measure of development as well. So it's not, I'm saying 10 years ago that there was things that I regret doing, or I regret saying, or I regret, kind of being in that space. And it was never, I've never really been that confrontational. I could be like you. I can be, a little bit hard certainly when it comes to work and leading teams and things like that. But, I've never been a controversial person. I've never been confrontational. I've never, that isn't in my makeup. But, just kind of, and I think that is when we can look back over those years and go, actually, this is how I've changed. This And you can recognize that change as development because it's taking you to where you want to be. I think that's a very powerful thing as well.
Yes.
You know, I journaled quite a bit, and the things that I was worried about 5 years ago, I think they're just small fry now. They're just like kind of,
yeah.
you know.
I think for me, it's easy to look back 10 years because I'm 29. So like I was 10 years ago, I was just starting out, right? I was 19, so probably wasn't even graduated high school a year yet in college. So it's easy. And I like to think of that you never get as far in 1 year as you want to. You never accomplish what you want to in a year, but you will always accomplish more than you want to in 5. And with the right perspective and the right drive and with the right people, you will get a lot farther than you could ever imagine in 10. And I mean, I look back, I mean, for me, it's easy. You look at the stats, as it were, right? Married, kids, you know, not going back, not living at my parents' house during school breaks, successful career, all that type of stuff. But it's really what makes Joesph for us? Who is, that a character, that personality? Not perfect by any means. I'm not even going to try to say that I am, but that's what really matters is the character and who you are to yourself and to others.
Yeah, and self-awareness is a great thing to have as well. And when I say about self-awareness, it's knowing that everything you do is not going to be perfect, that you're going to make mistakes, that you're going to say, okay, I wish I hadn't have said that, or I wish I hadn't have done that, or and I'm not talking about regrets, but it's having the self-awareness to say, okay, that wasn't perfect, that wasn't great, and I realize that, and I own it, and I'm going to move forward from that point. And even in work, you can come across a situation and you can handle it, and certainly when you're leading teams, you can handle it in one way, in the moment, in the environment that you're in, and then you can reflect back and go, I could have handled that slightly differently, or I could have done this, I could have included that person more, or maybe I didn't listen to their views. And you said earlier, sometimes you need to stop, sit back and take a breath. With the self-awareness, we can do that with ourselves as well, that we can go, okay, I didn't handle that particularly well, but I can do better next time. And I think this is so important because you've led some teams and kind of helped develop those as well, haven't you?
Yes. So I first led a team at 23 when I was at UHE. And then at RH White, I led that entire division. And then through the reconstruction, through the restoration and the emergency efforts, and then probably the hardest teams that I've led was at Webb when I was during the manufacturing, the testing, and all of that during the working on the COVID rapid tests. And that was an interesting journey in itself because I didn't start there in a leadership role. I was a team member, but I was not leading teams. And at my peak there, I had a team of 84 people, wonderful, hardworking individuals. And the way things work, that's a lot of people. I'm only one. Um, and I was blessed to have a young man who had the same role as mine, so we were able to work together. But even still, that was a lot. And that self awareness of how to take a step back, of sometimes we would, would walk at a fast pace being in the biotech industry. We work in clean rooms, we work in dry rooms, right? And there can be sometimes you got a decent walk. You're walking from room 3 to room 0 to room 2 to room 1. One day, my teammate, I'm just going to call him LP, he looked at his smartwatch. He clocked 11 miles at work in 10 hours. And I was like, I went everywhere you went. And I also got to work a half hour before you, so I'm probably close to 12. And we would always be running around, but there were some times where we had to stop, and we would always, be on the walkies and da 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 da. And so what I did through my own self-awareness as a leader and looking at the projection for not just the team we were leading, but also the supporting roles of warehouse, QC, QA, material handlers, and all that, I went to our boss and said, hey, we need like a 20-minute every day meeting. He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, with all this rushing around, all this crazy communication, if I'm confused, if I'm having a headache, imagine everybody else. So Winston Churchill said something on the lines of, you can solve anything in 15 minutes standing up with the Queen, or something like that. Just after, the 1950s, it was like, I forget the exact quote, and I hate to misquote such a great leader like Winston Churchill. But his point was, whatever issues of state he had, there's nothing he couldn't fix standing up in front of the Queen in 15 minutes. And so having that mindset of, what if we took 15 minutes, brought everyone together, and not high level leaders, but those who are like supervisor, like leading the troops on the floor, right? And just talked it out. And then at the end, we had our game plan. So 10 minutes to talk it out, 5 minutes, here's the final say. And it helped. But it has to be that self-awareness of, if I'm going through it, I mean, we're all human, right? So others must be going through it too.
Yeah, it is. It's so important kind of in leadership roles as well, because, and I think sometimes leaders can get bad reputations because it's so easy to then pass the blame further down the line. Like in your position, you could have gone, well, I'm confused, but I'm just going to let everyone else carry on. And then if something goes wrong, then it's going wrong further down the line, not here. And yeah, it is. It's that old saying. I'll find that Churchill quote. But it's that old saying: you need to learn to lead yourself before you can lead other people. And I think that's a lot about process, because what you were talking about for me, clean rooms and dry rooms, it is very process based and it is very protocol. Do you think that self or development of self or development teams can be very similar as well, or do you think it's a bit more fluid?
So when it comes to leading teams, and this is actually a wonderful question. I love it. I love talking about the development of people and everything, and just helping others succeed. You need to have that structure of that logical base, that protocol. You need to have that structure to go by. But empathy, empathy. people bring work home with them. People bring home to work. Over the last couple of years, I had a pregnant wife who was in and out of the hospital. Then I had a baby, and my baby's the last couple months. I won't go into any detail, and he's okay. He's doing all right now. We got some stuff going on, but my son's been in the hospital several times, 3 times, I believe, over the last couple months. I had to one day leave work, just like ran out. Like life happens, so you need to have that, Star Trek Spock logic basis. Like that, there's time for that, but there's also, if you can't lead the individuals within the team, then you can't lead the team as a whole. You got to have that. Am I making sense? Hopefully I am.
You are to me, yeah. I was looking for the applause button somewhere, but I can't find it.
So one thing that's a little bit about my past, and I don't think I've mentioned it yet, is I also put myself through medic school back in 2015. I did that at night, so I worked 2 jobs and did that. And one of the things that one of my professors said, well, you have to imagine that, to be EMT paramedic, the book's literally this big. Like, I'm not exaggerating. He's one of them, right? And he's like, this, and he held up the book, and he's like, this book will do nothing except hold no good to you except prop open the door, because there's a difference between opening up the textbook and being like, this procedure, and then you get to an emergency, and you know what to do. You have it in your head. You've done all the practice. You've done all the hands-on training you can possibly do. Now it's just do. And when it comes to leadership, sometimes it's, all right, I have to cancel this meeting because this person, kid is sick. They have this going on. The car broke down. Sometimes you just have a bad mental day and you come to work anyway because it's your responsibility, but you're just not there. And as a leader, you have to show strength. But you can also tell people, like, hey, look, part of showing strength is saying, like, hey, look, I can't understand exactly what you're going through because I'm not exactly where you're at, but I've been close enough where I'm aware, like, hey, I've been here, like, I've been sick, I've been through X, I've been through Y, that, hey, look, you just gotta, I've been there, I made it. So you just spend the day. I told somebody once, look, you just finish out the day, but you just take it nice and easy. If that means you have to reorganize the computer desktop and your computer files and delete all those emails, be available for emergencies, but you just kind of take a mental day, and then that, towards the end of the day, if you happen to leave a half hour earlier, I'm not going to hold it against you. And that individual, pushed through and just did the little stuff. And I think being a strong leader is just understand that empathy.
Yeah, it is. Empathy is, it's such a powerful thing to have, because I'll give you a little scenario, something you're going to learn, and it's wonderful. I've got a younger daughter, and I find kids to be great examples, and you'll find this now, when your son's hungry, he will cry, but or whatever indication he gives to you that he's hungry, that is his only focus. I want feeding. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what your wife's doing. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. I want food now. This is focus. And we have to remember that as adults, we're also quite like that. So, when you said that, people take work home and they bring home into work, and it is so true. When there's something going on in someone's life that maybe isn't work-based, but because we're adults, we've come into work. Because we're adults, we try and ignore it or push it to the side and get on with what we're being paid to do, or we're getting, we're trying to distract ourselves, but it is there and it's still a large part. So yeah, empathy is addressing that. And you're right, it isn't saying, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're going through, because you don't, because everything's got a different set of circumstances.
Right.
And what people don't realize is when you say, oh yeah, I know what you're going through, or oh yeah, that happened to me last year, or you actually start to invalidate someone's feelings. You can say, yes, I can empathize because I've had a similar experience, which is exactly what you said. So you can become relatable that way. And you're right that the empathy within the team, and I should imagine that guy that actually really appreciated you saying what you did to him, which in turn returns, I don't want to say the word loyalty, because I don't want to say that you did it because you're going to get something back in return.
Right.
But it is building those kind of relationships.
It's a collaborative level of respect that's being built up between two teammates.
Yeah. And I think that this is also important, that regardless of the role you play in your team, yeah, you are still teammates. You're still part of that team, regardless of that label that you've got, or your position within that team. You still all kind of pulling together.
Right. One of the when I was at RH White, when I was managing all of the OQ that entire division, we had offices all over New England. The 6 New England states, right? And I worked at the corporate headquarters. I was not a gas. I didn't work in the field and learn how to put 2 pipes together, how to tie off pipes, how to seal them, how to tap them, how to do all these different things, metal pipes, the plastic type of pipes, all the stuff. But I learned, and I got certified in everything, all the paperwork, all the practical hands-on tests. I took them all. Because how can I lead people and tell them, hey, are you being careful? Are you following protocol and procedure and quality and all of that, if I don't know it myself? How are they going to respect it? How can I lead you to success if I'm not there? So I took it upon myself to, hey, look, I'm going to learn all of this. It's going to take time. It took me a better part of 6 months. And then I also went in the project executive at the time. He put me out in the field to work alongside a product manager for 3 weeks out in Western Mass. So a few hour drive from our corporate office, about an hour and a half away. So I was out there and I had to drive leaving my house at 4 a.m. to get there for 6 a.m. So I could have that perspective. And then I went to Bryant University and took classes at the same time in that industry. All this is to gather the tools I need to lead that everyone. And so I don't want to lead someone and tell them to do something that I can't do myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. One I think gets missed a lot, that how much extra work a leader will do to educate themselves in case there's a situation that comes up within their team that they want to deal with.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's a point that's missed quite a lot. And yeah, I've been the same. I've stepped into industries that I haven't known that much about. So I've worked with I worked steel processing, um, and I actually when learnt about the chemical analysis, the chemical properties of metal, and not because I necessarily needed it, but I then had that technical knowledge to then. So for me, what it was having the technical knowledge to be able to have the conversations to get the knowledge that I wanted, if that makes sense.
No, that absolutely makes sense.
So it's about how we were rolling huge sheets of metal and of steel and aluminium, and if you don't know how they're going to react, or you don't understand why these sheets react the way that they do, how can you ever then get the quality, the product, and the productivity of your team without ever knowing that in depth? I'm and for me, it was like, right, I know who I need to speak to, but I know I haven't got the technical ability to get the answers that I need, because they'll give me an answer and I
Right.
won't understand it. And I need to be
Oh
able
yeah.
to. So it's that kind of work that good leaders do put in. And I suppose this would lead me to quite a good question, actually, and might put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
It's something that I'm fascinated with, because this has opened up something about leadership that maybe people who aren't in leadership roles or aren't performing at their best level of actually what goes on, what the hard work. She mentioned WebEx says there's something similar in the UK, where you can take all the online courses and then you pay for the certification at the end. And they're absolutely fantastic courses, because the ones here, that they are time based, but not so strict that you're working every night on them. But it's getting that technical knowledge. So I suppose the question is, what are the signs, or what do you believe the signs for a good leader are? I mean, we've talked, certainly empathy is a big one, as
Oh, for sure.
is the person that's leading you. And when I talk about leadership, it's not necessarily the person leading your team. It could be the person within a company leading, or it can be, in your personal life. If you're part, and you mentioned church, or you mentioned community centers, and you're part of that community. If someone's leading that community, they're leading it as well. So kind of what we've got empathy. What other things can you think we can throw in there?
So that's a good question. A few other things besides empathy is you need to have um, a certain layer of thick skin. Um, you can't crumble at the first sign of having a bad day or somebody being upset with you or the team, with the project, the process, whatever it may be. So being able to, and by thick skin, I don't mean just like being rough and harsh, but
It's not
being
personal.
able to absorb it, being able to
Yeah.
process it. And if you can't initially process it right there on the spot,
Mm.
have that ability to put it in a box in your head, put it aside, and say, I'm going to get to that later. Right now, I'm going to answer you. I'm going to talk to you respectfully, which brings me to the next part, respect. If you can't respect others, you won't be able to respect a project. You won't be able to respect yourself. Um, so those are empathy, being able to process or get back, learn how to get back to it, respect, and then also a drive for hunger to learn. So, like you said, there's a lot that people don't necessarily see in their leaders. I look at my at where I am now, my supervisor, and then my senior manager, and up from there. When you get to the senior management level, they're doing stuff I have no idea. And since I've led divisions with millions of dollars of budgets, so I know what it's like. But I don't know what it's like in this industry. Mm-hmm. And so having understanding that not everybody has the same role and being able to explain that to others. I'm like, hey, look, I am your division manager. I am your trainer. I am your X. I am your Y. This is what you do to contribute. This is what I do to contribute. And being able to explain that in a way to be like, hey, look, different titles, same team. And like just to quickly jump back to that hunger of knowledge. I know I'm one who loves to read, loves to write, loves to pre-COVID attend different conferences and whatnot, whether it's virtual or in person. Actually, last year, Boston had Biotech Week in person. So I went to that. That was awesome. And just being able to figure out what's the process. And then there's also people like John Maxwell. And any leader who's been around for 5 minutes knows the name John Maxwell, mm-hmm. right? Reading his books, listen to his, 12 o'clock at noon, at least for like about a year. The first year of COVID, he was live on Facebook. So I tuned in and just kind of learning because he deals more with leading teams and people. And I could just tap into a little, if I can tap into a little bit of John Maxwell, I'm probably on the right track. And a couple other answers, a few things to be a good leader.
Do you think that the hunger drives passion as well, or is it just a hunger for where you are now?
So the passion helps. That you need to have passion to have that drive. But it's also not just passion. Like right now, I love what I do in, life sciences. And I'm not looking for the next career job. Like that's not even like I'm not looking, right? But I still have that passion for my family. I still have for my own personal growth. So I don't need to go tell Moderna, hey, look, I'm studying this, I'm doing all these things, but I can do it internally. Do it like I can know myself. I can do it for myself, for my family. I'll just have to do it for the company. So I have that own drive. So there can be more than one driver, more than one passion at a time. And in fact, if I think you become a better leader, the more drive you have from more areas. Not just money based, not just title, but if you can do it for the betterment of mankind and for your immediate family, for your community, for yourself, for somebody who has that sickness. So I'm telling myself, okay, I'm going to try to do what I can, my little part, to cure this or to figure out this solution. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think that when you have a passion for something else, that you pick up characteristics, you pick up traits, you pick up habits that then make you a better leader, that then you take into work. Quite recently, I've been talking about being a business athlete, and what that is when you look at the discipline, the aspects that top athletes put in. They turn up on the days they really don't want to turn up. They restrict their diets. They can't go out and eat that those buffalo wings, or those, that chocolate cake, or when I was in the States, it was definitely grilled cheese, but they have to restrict it. They have to make those sacrifices. And when we look at ourselves in our lives, do we make those sacrifices? So I'm trying to think of a good example. So if you're not interested in developing yourself in your personal life, if you finish work, you come home, you sit down, you put your feet up, and that's it until you go to work the next day. My question would be, how do you then pick yourself up for work? But if you're driven at home to excel, to exceed, to play with your son and to be the best husband you can, and the best person in the community that you can, that's naturally going to go into the work environment as well. And I think, what you said about the hunger and passion is a bit of a funny one, because you can be hungry to learn something. You can be hungry to have a career without it being your passion. Your passion can be something else that is then driving that aspect of you that makes you a better leader or a better team member. It's a really interesting conversation, because one thing I love about development is there's so many bits, but then where do they all kind of seem to fire each other.
Right.
So, it is it's really, really interesting. Thank you so much for your time, Joesph. And you've got a book coming out soon.
Yes.
In the process of being written.
So I have a book that's currently in review and with the publisher. It is called 15 Keys Leading. 15 Keys Leading People and Teams with Empathy. And then a lot of that drives from the emergency response and the restoration of that gas project, and then leading the team through that development of that COVID test. But during my writing phase, which I've slowed down a lot on writing, but I managed to pump out 2 books during my wife's pregnancy, which people are like, how did you do that? That drive, that 3 hours of sleep, right? Sometimes I even just write on the phone, like just. So I'm actually going to do before that one comes out, I'm actually going to put another book out on just self-publish as well. So that's actually going to be out probably next month. Still trying to, it's written, I have somebody I'm working with just to help with the formatting of it, and then I'll push it out. But yeah, 15 Keys is definitely the major one. It's going to be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's going to be everywhere. Online, obviously.
Certainly look
I'll get Walmart everywhere.
Yeah. Coming from the precious situations you were in, from medical, which isn't easy. I know firsthand it isn't easy, and you have to maintain a level of calm and professionalism, but knowing that people are going through traumas and things, the kind of the gas explosion, which would have affected so many people's lives, and COVID as well. It's like when we have major things, and let's face it, COVID has been major. The gas explosion is an immediate impact. People want to return to normality and look to blame other people, or look to other people to speed things up. So that is going to be an amazing read, because of the situations that you've been in, that you're coming from. Yeah, I'll look out for that.
I'll definitely. I'm gonna have to keep in touch with you. Maybe even ask you to plug it in one of your other shows and whatnot as it comes close. So definitely like to keep in contact with you, not just for that, but in general.
I think I need to do a live show of book reviews. I know a few people publishing books at the moment, so
yeah, it sounds awesome.
Good to kind of have a good roundup. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, I look. Thank you so much for having me, being part of your international coaching and all that. If there's anything that I can do to support you, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you, Joesph. This is it's been a great conversation, and thank you for giving it your time. And again, apologies for the slow start.
Oh, not a problem at all.
I would blame my tech team, but that's me. So yeah, I'll blame StreamYard. Okay then, Joesph.
All right, well, take care.
Yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.